coming and how it is that we tend to not deal successfully with them. What I want to suggest is that we have a tendency under the influence of ahankara to want. And we want in, well, basically 4 ways, each of which has a counterpart. So you might say 8 ways. And I'm using the word want in a double sense. In English it works at least. I don't know about other languages, but in English, if I say, I want a samosa, I can mean 2 things. I can mean, as we might more readily think of it, I will now therefore go and get a samosa. Oh, I want a samosa, and so I go and get it. It can also mean I am lacking in samosas. I am wanting, in English, it's slightly out of use in the English language, but to want, to be in want is to be lacking something, right? So, this is significant. Now, what I want to say is that there's a basic tendency in the influence of ahankara to want to be separate. And of course, we understand our initial wanting separateness is our wanting to be separate from Krishna, isn't it? And we understand that our eternal position, which obviously means to be free from ahankara, is to be with Krishna. Now, the opposite of wanting separateness would be what? It would still be a wanting. What sort of an opposite to separateness would there be? Oneness, right? There is a wanting oneness, okay? Now, we understand philosophically that to want to be one with Krishna is also a problem, right? No? Not a problem? Problem. Yes, problem. Okay. Okay, well, we can discuss. But if we mean by it total, union with Krishna such that there's no longer any distinction, that's a problem. Yes. Now, these are kind of primordial, what I'm talking about in relation to Krishna, that's the sort of primordial wanting separateness and wanting union. But in an everyday life, we also have our wanting separateness and wanting union in a more modest level. Sometimes we just like to be kind of by ourselves, We don't want to always be with so many others. Or am I the only one? Right. So sometimes we need some time to ourselves, right? And sometimes we don't want to be all by ourselves. We want to be with others. And that wanting to be with others we can think of as also a kind of wanting union. Now this can take the form of wanting others to decide things for us. But this is now getting to another sort of wanting. And that is a wanting survival. We want separateness, so we become separate from Krishna. But as soon as we find ourselves separate from Krishna, immediately we need to go about surviving. Because now we are no longer in a situation connected to Krishna such that we are in his shelter. And so we need to survive. And so wanting survival and feeling the lack of survival is a kind of visceral. You know the word visceral? For some of you, English is not your own language. Visceral means having to do with the physical body. Visceral.
The actual substance of the body.
Yeah, the substance of the body itself. It's the blood and the bones, and so the feeling, the wanting to survive is it's an urge which you experience if suddenly there's a very immediate threat to your life, right? In the form of adrenaline. So that's wanting survival. We don't generally feel it subconsciously, but it's certainly there. And as we'll talk about, it's useful to be aware of this wanting. In order to sustain survival, it helps if we have approval of others. And so one of the things that we find extremely important in our lives is approval. However much we may theoretically sometimes say, I don't care what anybody thinks, we actually find it very important what others think. However, the opposite is also true, and I should say that about survival. Sometimes, and this may not be true of most of us most of the time, sometimes people commit suicide. They don't want to survive. They want, Freud would talk about the death instinct and that sort of thing. But sometimes, therefore, we may take a risk. We may go out to a danger, we put ourselves into a dangerous position, which is maybe more dangerous than we should be putting ourselves in. So the opposite of this wanting survival is wanting not to survive. The opposite of approval is not wanting approval. And this can be healthy, because if we always hankered after wanting everyone to be pleased, then we could never do anything a little adventurous. We could never go out on Sankirtan because we would be afraid that someone would say, no, I don't want your book. Right? Now, we may sometimes feel a very strong need for approval, but we may not get it. And then we may resort to a tendency, surprise, surprise, which we all have, and that is the tendency, the desire, the want for control.